Coming up, Fan Take Friday brings the dream run for the Locked On Nets hosts inside the draft for Brooklyn, plus reminding everybody the trickiness of picking at 8th overall, even in a deep draft class, plus all of your players that you want Brooklyn to bring home. Coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Armbrick. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. We're 100% free on all those great platforms. And for just the second to last time on our 10-year Fan Take Friday, coming in hot with a whole bunch to talk about from you, the fans, and the players that you like. But we start things off, Doug, and Dog. Hey, Dog.
I'm your dog. It's all right. It's all good.
You're my dog. You're my dog. You're my boy, Doug. You're my boy.
I mean, it isn't like we spent 10,000 hours going back and forth in the show saying each other's names, but that's all good. It's fine to make mistakes this late in the run. No big deal.
And you're Dale, right? Look at the top of the draft here. When we talk about, before we get into all these picks, and we're gonna give our 4, maybe a couple more that we like at 8, 19, 26, and 27. But the trickiness of, as you and I were running through some mocks and looking at players, that 8th overall pick is actually, in certain moments, a bit of a bummer for Brooklyn, even beyond missing out on the top guys because of where you are and how some of these prospects are stacking up.
It's really funny. It'd almost be easier. Okay, it'd be easier if the Nets drafted like 3rd. I won't even go to 1-2, right? Like I'll say it's easier if they drafted 3rd or like
12.
And could replace the 8th pick with 12 and 13 or something like that, right? And just get 2 100%. Picks for that, right? And I know people are going to say, well, that doesn't make sense, but it's like, it speaks to the fluidity and the overall talent base in this draft. It's almost like you'd rather have 2 picks, 10 to 13, than the 8th pick, where you might have to make a tough decision on like who the guy is. And now maybe that's sort of a beta way to think, because you're like, oh, I just want someone else to make the decision for me and I'll take the next best guy. But then I think you're going to find that the Nets are maybe in a tricky spot here, where I'm telling you right now what's going to happen. Now the Nets might hit on 8. That's totally could happen.
Yeah,
I'm positive that someone like 10 through 15 is going to hit in a major way. And then there's going to be a lot of FOMO like years later about these guys that didn't hit. Like, I feel very, very confident with that. And you'll see when we go through some of the fan takes, we got tons of, thank you, so many responses about this top 4. Yeah. Nets fans are jazzed about this draft, and rightfully so. So like, that's a good place, I think, for the fan base to be, is that like there's a lot of active thinking about this draft, as there should be. But what you'll see, the theme is, it's either like, taking a guy and crossing our fingers, or I hope that this one guy that's mocked a little higher falls. Because it's like a little hard to key in on who exactly you want, but they definitely fit those 2 themes. It's like total reach, and we hope it works out, or can Trey Johnson get to 8 or something like that? And it's like, maybe, but probably not. Or Jeremiah Fears or someone like that. So I think, and by the way, I think that happens at 19 also. Like, I think that happened. I think that same exact thing happens at 19, where there's this other class of players and you're like, well, that guy could go at 15 now, or we're going to reach a little higher. So it's a very funny thing, I think, what we're seeing happen.
And you mentioned that name in Trey Johnson. We'll talk about again at the back end of this draft when we're thinking about where we want the Nets to go with the 4 picks. But he actually became, we talked about him a lot, and there's a lot of things to like about his game. And then we're talking about upside swings. And at a certain point, I said, boy, Trey Johnson getting to 8 might be kind of important for the way you want this draft to play out for the Brooklyn Nets, depending on who you look at, depending on upside swings and all that stuff. We'll talk about that more on the back end. But before we get to fan takes on all the players, and you said, fans are in on this one, because when you have 4 draft picks, by the way, it's easy to want to dive in on every single guy. There are 2 players that we want to make mention of, and you're already starting to see a bit more buzz around both of them. The first of which we had made mention of yesterday on the episode. You had brought him up first, and we both I immediately was like, oh, yep, saw his name. Cedric Coward, out of Washington State, coming off of a shoulder injury. He'd be on the older side from a Brooklyn perspective, almost 22 years old at the time of the draft class. But he's rising. He may only be 31 on Tankathon's board right now, but you're already seeing talks about him up near 20 to 22 range. What do you like about his game? Because now By the way, this happens when you're looking at every single guy. I'm like, or maybe he's the guy that I really like in this draft class.
Ringer has him mocked at 14. Like,
I know.
so now they also have Danny Wolf, like, number 1 overall or whatever. So, like,
I tell
take
you,
that with the
Ringer's
serious
board, just by
contender.
the way, there's some guys, because if you like him, you go, there you go, look where they've got him ranked. And there's a couple other ones you go, well, no, hold on a second here. Where is your board exactly? But I appreciate that they've been taking kind of swings and like claiming their players when you look at their board.
Yeah, Coward at 22, right around, he'll be right around 22 of the draft. It's like, I don't know, man. There's so much to like. Like, body is fully NBA ready right now. 40% from 3 at decent volume in his senior year. Like 56% from the field. Could rebound the hell out of the ball. Like, just looks all the way like an NBA player right now. He should not be mocked in the 30s. Like, no chance. There's no way he'll go this late. There's just no way. He's just already too good. And he's one of those ones where, like, could the Nets get, I mean, I've seen, like, this is crazy. They're like, does he have like Kawhi Leonard in him? You're like, oh, maybe, right? I don't know. Like, he can play defense at the NBA level now.
From outside the first round to now being like Kawhi Leonard, deserving of lottery or top 10 status potentially.
But is his floor like DFS or something like that, which is also really good, right? Like,
yes.
It's like, is he like, is that the absolute floor for him, like, coming into the NBA right now, where he's going to be able to shoot threes, play defense, be able to get physical with other players. And then, so I think he could probably just do that right out of the box. And then if there's this other level where he ticks up one more level where he's beating guys off the dribble and can get his own shot just a little bit as one of these defenders, because now you're talking about the dream. Because the real dream about these wing guys is that, like, there's a lot of guys that can come in and play the conventional 3-and-D wing, but the NBA is almost evolving past that at this point, where
Cam Johnson.
I think it's like it was one thing to have great 3-and-D wings, but the NBA, the league's just getting too good. Like, you can't be just only kind of those guys. You need to be able to, like, be like DFS, where it's like 3-and-D wing, but you can also guard 5s if we needed you to, right? Or something like that.
3-and-D wings, but like, also you can take a guy off the dribble consistently on the offensive end when you're ISO, right?
Or do that. And then you're like Tatum or something like that. Like, I don't think you can be that necessarily, but it's like, what we've looked at a lot of these guys where it's been hard to kind of envision that next thing happening. So you're like, okay, can he spot up, shoot threes, and play enough defense? And that makes a nice NBA career for you. Or are you a guy that can just do this one other thing, which is score a little bit? You get the ball at the end of a shot clock and you can make your own shot just enough. And if you can do that, well, you are this, like, different caliber and class of player that can kind of play with everybody. He should not be mocked in the 30s. I would be ecstatic if he was there at 19 for the Nets to take. Like, and if he was, like, available late 20s, he won't be available late 20s. I'm almost positive. No. Like, I just think that there's just no way. Like, the body is already, if you can kind of envision a guy stepping onto the court in an NBA floor now, like, you just, no matter what your age is, you can't go in the 20s. I don't think. Like, and so we'll get to the dream draft later, but I just wanted to make mention of, like, he fits to me more than, who did we talk? Oh, Nick Clifford. Like, so Nick Clifford was, like, old, and it's like, I don't know, because I could probably see what the ceiling is, but he's NBA ready now, and I think he could help a lot of teams, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that's a Sean Marks guy. Cedric Howard, though, where you're like, hey, this guy could be, not even Mikhail, because he's, like, a little different, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, these guys are just not 3-and-D wings. So, like, one step above, maybe not superstar, but on-ball wing creator, I'll call. Like, he's got that in his bag for sure. I'm like, please get to 19. I don't think it's going to happen, but you also can't take him at 8 because it's too high. So, like,
well, I know. And this is, by the way, I've done this we'll talk about the other player that I want to take mention of as we get into fan takes, because some people put him on their list there too. Another guy that seems to be rising here. And then all of a sudden you look at him and you go, oh, why wasn't I thinking about him sooner? But this is I always relate to NFL, because NFL, when it comes to, like, quarterbacks, it's always like, oh God, franchise QB, love this dude, love him. Where are you picking? 6? Okay, would you move up to 2? God, no, I wouldn't even think about taking him at 2. It's like the weirdest thing. But then you talk about a guy like, well, you Cedric Howard as the example. You go, okay, if you love him and you love for him to fall to 19, and you can't maybe get up to 14, where you say it's a perfect spot to take him, why not take him at 8? Oh, how could you possibly? I don't know, because if you think he can be that guy, then again, relative to who else is there and, what other players project to. But at some point, you just have to look, especially in a deep draft class. We talked about this all off season long here. If it's a deep class and you build your board and you just have this guy higher, who are you justifying it to? And again, it will be someone gets taken at 15 and you took Cedric Howard at 8 and you go, oh my God, I can't believe you passed on Molly Watch or you passed on player XYZ there. But I will say, after, say, Trey Johnson and that top from that 7 back to like 14 range, you start having a lot of conversations where really, as you look at some of these other players that are rising, it's just like, I like this guy. And I really don't care about these other guys that may have been sitting there and what their upside is. Like, I just like this player. So he becomes really fascinating. Love what I've seen from him. And consistency, by the way, close to or at 40% for his entire 3-year college career. Coming up here in a second. We'll make mention of another player. Some of the fans out there have put them on their board as well at the back end of the first round, but a laundry list of players to discuss from you, the fans. We'll do that all here coming up in just one moment.
All right, before we get that, tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. NBA playoffs are in full swing. Are they ever? And every night's delivering highlight-worthy performances or overtimes like we saw last night. Major momentum shifts like we saw last night. Can't miss moments like we saw last night in the Garden. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, no better time to get in on the action over on FanDuel. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live and into overtime. Player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Maybe if you were shooting overs on basically any player prop from this game, from this Pacers Knicks game, you were getting all the way there. That's what happens when you get to OT, and you just got Halliburton out there looking all the way like a superstar. What a crazy game! And this is exactly why you want to be watching, why you want to be on FanDuel as well. And you get a $200 bonus to bets every to add to the excitement if your first $5 bet wins. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right. As we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, little tip of the cap to the New York Knicks. I'm not throwing shade at them. I said this before the series started. Whenever there's a team that's favored, I like to root for the underdog. And there was something about the energy of, well, the Knicks got through Boston, so now it's a clear path to an NBA championship. I just love that game happened the way that it did. I love that you have all these guys on Indiana who, if like maybe you're a casual NBA fan, and Nembhard, and obviously in Halliburton and Miles Turner, who's like come back on in the last couple of years of his career relative to where you thought about him 5-6 years ago. I mean, first of all, phenomenal game. We'll take a combined 270 plus point game in overtime, but it's awesome. Not so awesome if you're a Knicks fan and they blew, a 17-point lead in the last 6 minutes of the game. But in general speaking, what a fun.
By the way, Nets fans, last list. I want to get to your guy. Nets fans, let's just act like I've said this in Twitter. The opposite of love isn't hate; it's indifference. You can't. It's such a bad look to do this.
Oh, I know.
Like back running on Knicks stuff. Just like, I don't know, watch the basketball. It's just like feeds the fire. There's nothing to stand on. So it's like just watch the basketball and don't treat it like whoever is against the Knicks is your second favorite team. Like I just feel like it's such a weird thing. Like that's just me. I know I'm going to get some hate for that. Get into your guy.
No, I know it's absolutely absurd. But as we talk into some of the fan takes here as well, I'll mention it because as I said, some people threw this name out there looking through the back end of the first round because I was trying to find like a 26 and 27. What are we thinking about? So we'll talk about him again when we give our final 4 or 6 players. But Maxime Raynaud, another Frenchman, 7'1". Whoops, that's got some size for you. And even though he's lanky, has a little bit of that athleticism in terms of getting out in transition and working on the offensive end. Defensively, we can get into that, where he would fit in and, being able to be a rim protector or not, some slow footwork. But pick and pop big, kind of the thing the Brooklyn Nets could just use. That's exactly the mold that this guy is built in. Knock down, what was it? I want to make sure I get the number right here because I'm going to blow past it. Knocking down 34, almost 35% from beyond the arc, 35% this past season, hitting over on 5.5 attempts per game. And that was a big increase in volume relative to how he was in the 3 years prior. Didn't take any more than 2 attempts per game going back on that. This just feels like lanky, upside guy. He's been mocked everywhere from like 30 to 45-ish, but he's been rising. Some boards have had him move up 8 to 10 spots here in the last 2 weeks. I'd say at 26, again, maybe the same kind of thing we talk about with Coward. I don't know if he's necessarily there, not as much buzz, but 26 or 27, this feels like a very easy Sean Marks kind of swing and solving a problem that they have not been able to clip here. Pick and pop, stretch the floor, has a nice shooting touch from beyond the arc. Lot to like about the baseline of this player coming in.
Yeah, like, again, pushing the age thing a little bit. The athleticism is what drives it down. And it's like, well, if you have a 7-footer that can't defend every center in the game, then you're like getting in a little bit of a trouble zone on the defensive end because you might not have the rim protection. Because, like, you can't always just say, hey, 7-footer rim protection. Because I actually don't think that's the case with him here. But we'd be calling balls and strikes with this. We've taken digs at the bigs that can't do this at all. along the way. And then this guy can do it. So it's like, okay, well, which one do you want? For sure has a Sean Marks kind of profile written all over him for terms of like the kind of stuff that I think he wants different players to be able to do. Again, I think it's an example of if this was last year, he'd be considerably higher in the draft than he is now. But the age drives a lot of these guys down. Like it's like if you couldn't translate it right away when you were 19 and 18, and you weren't a for sure top pick then, and now you get to 22, and then teams get worried, and you're just longer into your life cycle, and the age matters. So I like it. I don't like it at 19. I don't think you're suggesting that, so don't worry. But like, but he fits. If we're talking about the things we didn't like about some of these other bigs, he doesn't have that problem. Like he can for sure shoot, for sure. And it's like, but he probably is not gonna be able to defend anybody. But maybe that's good enough if you just have a pick and pop, 3-point kind of stretch big, and it's all over the place with this draft. This draft's wild.
And how about this too? Because by the way, because we got to get some of the fan players, but I will say too. So I saw the name, I started looking, I go, oh, okay, here we go. 38. No. I take him 26, 27. I like where we're at here. And then I started looking around. There's one other board. It might have been Yahoo that had him a little bit higher. We've mentioned him before. He's on the network. It's not because he's on the network. Rafael Barlow, like I love the way he breaks down guys and the way he builds his board.
Totally.
He has him 12 on his big board.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, like I said, if you take away the age factor, which you can't because that matters to the development, but if this kid was 19 and a half and you looked at the skill set, I think we would be talking about him in the top 20 based on that alone and where he can project him. So we'll get back to him.
Well, real quick, the other awesome thing you can do with this draft, and then we'll definitely get to the fan stuff, is you can take all of your opinions and then just go around the industry and just find. They might wildly disagree with one opinion of yours, but you can find someone that's going to agree with the highest version of your opinion. And it's like, and just mix and match all the stuff. It's like, okay, well, Barlow had Maxine at 14 or whatever you just said. It's like, okay, well, Ringer had Coward at 14. Okay, so that's my guy there. I'm with him on this one. Now forget the other guys. In this group.
No, not the rest of the draft. Not the rest of the board.
I just go around and I find the examples of the people that agree with me about the one thing that I want them to agree with it, and then I move on. So like, but this draft is for sure like that because, and you're going to see when we talk about the fan stuff right now, is that as we break down people's top four, we're not going to be able to get through everyone that rang in on this. I'll do some and I'll give some themes. But you're going to see it's kind of all over the place in the coolest possible way.
We're going to go ahead and start with these fan takes here. One off of YouTube. We have a ton of these, by the way, but I'm just going to do it. Why? Because he said, please shout me out on Fan Take Friday. And then he gave that little emoji with the, out of the nostrils there. So Benny's World 2013, Kon Knueppel at 8, Noah Asenge at 19. Don't know if he'll necessarily be there, but could. Igor Demon at 26. Don't know if he's going to be there, but could. And then Thomas Sorber at 27. This is probably an example. Now, it's interesting because if you think about the way some guys are rising, somebody has to be falling here. But I'd say Benny is going with like optimistic in terms of where guys are still available on the board. You'd like this, but you also need everybody to be there at 19, 26, and 27 especially.
Yeah, so this was a theme that I saw a lot too. A lot of Twitter responses on this is like somewhat realistic around the 8th pick. But look, we're asking for dream drafts, and then in the dream draft, you're asking for guys to drop. So like, I would be all the way on board with this. This is actually very close to like what I said. It has 2 guys there, and then it's sort of kind of wishing and hoping that some of these guys drop, and then kind of going a little chalkier at the top. And so I'll give a couple more like this. There's no way I can get to all these, and so apologies. So we'll go fan sector 2814, had Fears, CMB dropping to 19. I don't think that's going to be all that realistic for CMB, but maybe because like, look, sometimes these guys got to drop, and then Coward with the next one. And he kind of just didn't say anyone else after that. Another theme I saw like from NWT here, Nets World Tour, was Asenge at 8, Riley, then your boy Phylon, and then Lendenborg with the next one. So I'm like, okay, that's like decently realistic. I think, but one thing I want to ask you, like I saw one theme from a lot of the fans here was Asenge at 8, like was one. Okay, I would say like the 3 guys were Fears for sure. Like everyone wants Fears at 8. Like that was one. I would say Fears was my most popular answer. Probably Fears, then Maliwatch, then Asenge, probably the top. Those are like the top 3 guys going at 8. Like Eric Manny had, and maybe Knueppel too. Of that group,
yeah, Josen one had Fears there. Aces had Molly Watch, familiar freaking flyers of the show.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know. Like, is that probably what we're just looking at? It's like a Fears, Molly Watch, Knueppel, whoever drops. Like, is that maybe probably what the Nets are staring down? Like, that's, I think, and like, let me ask you a question here, and we'll take a break, I guess. You can answer after
Yeah.
the break. Is that like the group that throws a Senge into that eighth pick? Like, do you think that fits with those other guys, or do you think that's like starting to reach too high at 8? All right, you
And that
can wait on that. We'll take go ahead.
will be answered here coming up in just one moment. All right. As we tie a pretty bow in today's Locked On Nets episode, which quite frankly, as we're winding down our time, I do have to say that I think the 30-minute show is getting a little bit too tight because there's a lot going on here and a lot to talk about. We have to circle up with Doug here. Maybe we'll throw like one just long form network schedule and structure be damned next week and just have a little bit of a hash out on a lot of this draft conversation. To Doug's point, and this is where it gets interesting because we talked about Senge and we like Senge and he's the big upside swing. I think this really depends on how the board breaks down at the top. We said there at the beginning, like it's interesting where Trey Johnson falling to 8 or having him land there at 8 for the Nets could be kind of important because even though when we talked about him, I said, oh, you want to take these upside swings, but you're pretty damn confident this kid walks in the door and he's a scorer and he can produce on the offensive end and you like where his game can translate going forward. So when people put Senge at 8, I think it probably is dependent on how that board looks there. Because I can make a case if Trey Johnson doesn't fall there, and then the Fears camp would probably say the same thing. I'm on the outside of that looking in. But if Fears was there or not there, if Trey Johnson is there or not there, I can probably bypass a Molly Watch. I can bypass a Kon Knueppel for Senge there, but I can't do it if it's Trey Johnson. And I understand when people are like, I don't know, can you really pass up Jeremiah Fears there to go for the big long-term swing when you think about how deep it is? I personally would do that, right? Like I would go Trey Johnson, then Senge, then Fears if I was ordering them out. But I understand where people are kind of at here. So it does depend how 1 through 7 breaks down ahead of Brooklyn and really specifically, 5 through 7, those 3 picks.
Well, one thing about Fears too that I'll say, because again, I think Fears, maybe I just read that one more because I was kind of out on this, and that one just stuck with me more the more I saw it. Like NBA Bubble said Fears at 8. I'm trying to find a couple. Yeah, you said Joe Martin, Joseph one, who's a big time listener, said Fears at 8. A couple other people too. Is that he like going the other way on this? Like he's so young that he's not even 19. He won't even be at 19 of the time of the draft. Might still be growing too. And like I don't know if he had another inch and a half in him or something like that. By the time he's done growing, by the time he hit 20, which I don't think is out of the realm of possibility. Because you look at him, he looks like he's 14. Like you look at him and he looks so young. Like he really made me feel old when I was watching the interviews from the combine. I was thinking, man, this guy looks so young. I couldn't. It actually threw me off a little bit. But if you think to yourself, well, he looks so young because he is so young, and you're buying like year 3 of this where like he's now 6'5" or something like that, then the whole thing changes. And he's got supreme confidence, and he seems like the basketball IQ is all the way there. I'm starting to come around a little bit on that one, but I don't even know if I answered your question. But I think in general,
which is the variable being, right? The variable of like what happens there and who's there at 8 changes whether or not you think you go for a Senge or not. Like Queen for me, I'm probably not talking about taking Queen at 8, right? I'm not having that same kind of conversation. Like we're saying, if I was picking at 11 or 12,
I'm taking the big swing. I'm taking the big swing at that point, and it's not Derek Queen. I don't think. Like,
I think it's only to me. It probably does come down to, and it's a good point about Fears and his ability to grow, right? Maybe over the next year. It's probably those 2 players in my mind right now at the top of the draft. If Trey Johnson or if Jeremiah Fears falls to 8, then you're having a real conversation. I'm not as concerned about saying, hey, I'm swinging big with the Senge over Kon Knueppel, over Yakachionis, over Molly Watch, right? I just start to, and now what becomes funny about that is that then you start to have a different conversation about players we discuss, like CMB, right? Like, so once you open yourself up to a certain thing that you're not interested in doing at the top, all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't know. Maybe it's Coward. What the hell do I know? Like maybe I just go with the guy that I like and I stop worrying about where they're picking at. Other guys here, just to throw out a few more. I mentioned aces there. Mamba Forever. He had them taking Yakachionis at 8. I wouldn't say I love that. Sorber at 19. Now he did end up taking Lendeborg at 26 and then Cedric Coward at 27. Coward's not going to be there. But Lendeborg's another guy that when I started looking at him a little bit too, at the back end of the first round, he's a name that a couple people listed here. I was looking at him and I do like him. We also got a couple shout outs around Fleming. Traore got brought back up again at 19. And then even Maxime Raynaud got mentioned in a few of these shout outs as well. Dan Leahy. Oh, let me make sure I get this in. You can hit a few for yourself as well. Molly Watch at 8. Demon at 19. I don't know if that's possible. He went with Philin at 26. And then Rasheer Fleming, who has some ranges in terms of outcomes, kind of depends on where he pushes back. I have liked his game as well. Who else did you have up on your board?
Yeah, from the fans here. Yeah, yeah, trying to get to these. It's so funny. When I put this out there, I was like, all the fans will say the same thing, and this will be easy to read. And then I started getting these answers, and I was like, oh, this is going to be impossible. Never mind. Like, I don't know why I thought this was a good idea format-wise. Like, it's like
you did, but by the way, I signed off on it. So we'll throw this out there and lock it up. Fan Take Friday. We're like,
4 picks with like 4 picks with infinity variables and 33 guys who you can mock into these ranges, like pretty realistic. 36 guys maybe that you could get into these ranges. It's like, oh yeah, this will be a super clean format that'll be really easy to follow. So no, I think I think, like I said, I think that if I was just looking for themes, I think that like fears was for sure a theme where I think Nets fans would be very, very excited about that. And I think I've come around on this being a fine idea, right? So I think that's fine. And I do think that like, the differences around everyone after that just speaks to unsure about like who's going to fall into what range. I actually do feel pretty confident that looking at all these things, all these different ways, I'll get into our top 4 here to finish it off, but looking at all these things this way has made me feel very confident that one of these guys that we like will fall. Now, whether the Nets take them, I'm not sure. Like if I think I know. Let me put it this way. I say this to my kid all the time when she says something like, it's like, I don't know what the right thing to say is. Or we say this too. I don't know what the right thing to say is, but I know what the wrong thing to say is. Right. So it's like, not sure the right answer, but I know the wrong one.
I don't know the right players. I don't know all the right players to draft, but I can tell you the wrong players to draft.
Exactly. And I actually think I know the players that I would feel wrong to me if they drafted. And I think like that's sort of the operating standpoint I'm going from. It's like, there's so many guys I like in these ranges that I'm going to talk myself into kind of a lot, not even talk myself into them. I'll just be happy with it. There's just a few that I would not be pumped about. Like for me, Danny Wolf, I know you're a little different. For me, I would say another one is like Asanuel. I don't think I'd be all that excited about. Jase Richardson, I don't think I'd be excited about. So like, I think these are the players where I'd be like, I'm not loving that. But for a lot of other guys, I think I'd just be okay with wherever they land. You want to give me your 4 and I'll give you my 4 before we get out of here. And I stretched mine I stretched it a little bit, but I think I'll
probably end up giving like 6 guys, and we understand the ranges that they fall into here, right? So let's do it this way. First and foremost, I think we talked this out now. I think you and I both agree. If it's Trey Johnson or it's Jeremiah Fears at 8 on the board, we understand it, and we both be very comfortable, maybe even more comfortable with Trey Johnson, but certainly Jeremiah Fears, we would get it. At that point, I do tend to look at Asenge and say, give me that big home run swing. A lot of the reasons is because as you move down the board and talk about some of these other players, I actually feel like, I've got some really nice baseline here. Now, people have asked, we'll do this next week, maybe combining some picks to move up. The idea that Coward can be there at 19, then that's a lock for me, right? I don't look back at that. I'll add into this group. So basically, we're talking 19 and then back down to it. I think Coward is an obvious one for me. I really do like... I do like Rasheer Fleming. I think you can have a conversation about that, even though he's close to 21 at the time of the draft, very polished, ready to come in and make an immediate impact. I like Raynaud at the back end, and I do like Yaxel Lendenborg out of UAB. I think he's really good too. And the only other guy I'll add on to there, I do believe that LeBaron Philin is like worth having a conversation about. Go look at all the boards where these guys exist. They're especially in that 19 to 30 range. They're spread out all over. So that's, at the top, you have your pick, kind of your choice, and then here's 5 or 6 other guys that I'd be very happy with. So I'll drill myself down. Asenge at 8. I'm going to say, well, this is what sucks. We're going to run a little bit long here because I have to clarify something with you. Can I say Coward at 19, or do we both agree he's not going to be there?
I put him lower, and I was hoping he would be there. So this is why I stretched it a little bit. So just go whatever. It doesn't matter. There's no
okay.
There's
so
no
I'm going to
right
say 8 is Asenge. I'm going to go 19 is Coward. I'm going to go 26. I will take 26. I'm going to go with Philin, and then 27. I'll go with Lendenborg, assuming that maybe Raynaud ends up there in that second round pick, and you can grab him.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, mine's less realistic than yours because I pushed all my favorite guys down. So it's
that's
so
what
no
I'm trying
problem.
to do. I'm trying to pigeonhole myself
you're being
a little bit, but yeah.
You're being realistic. I went Kon Knueppel at 8, and I think I'm okay with that. I think it's like a pretty safe I think it's safe, and he's young enough, and I think that there is some upside there.
Yeah, I know.
And I think it's like no one's gonna love that, but I think it's okay. Then I pushed Igor down, and it's like he falls to 19, and I thought, no, that's very realistic. Yeah, well, no, I told you, I was unrealistic. I gave you the out. I told you with Coward. I was like, so I went Igor at 19. I told everyone that they responded to this that wasn't realistic, and then I did it myself. And then I did Coward with that next pick, and I think that's like somewhat realistic because he's mocked so low in some places, and the age is going to throw people off. It's probably doesn't push all the way this way. And then I went Penda with the last pick.
Nice. Okay.
And I think I'm okay with that. I think it's not realistic that all four of these guys, I think Penda's realistic, but like, I don't think the other two, I think like Coward at 19 is more realistic than him pushing into the late 20s, but
yeah,
like,
because,
and then
and no, because by the way, it's like when you're doing that, it's like if I could get Coward at 26, like Rasheer Fleming, who is up there at 20, near 20 as well. It's like, okay, like let me jockey these guys around. The nice thing about this is I will say, like, so that we gave our list, putting Penda back up there on the board on everyone's mind, I think is important as well. But we are talking about like there's a lot there's I think we would combine to say from 19 to 30, you and I could have 8, 9 players. They'd be like, nice, like sweet. Now, whether or not they all fall there, that's to be discussed. And next week, I think the interesting part would be, are we interested, as some fans asked, are we interested in combining some picks and making sure we get to a place? If you only get to take 8, whoever you choose there, and then you really want Coward, is that worth 19 and 26 to get to 14 or wherever that number is, right? Those discussions, I think, do become really fascinating here as well. But there are players, as you heard here today, we talk about Lendenborg and talk about a guy like Raynaud, like all of a sudden, they've come out of relatively nowhere, talking about guys, second round, back into the first. Now you're hearing them in the first. Now you're hearing them mid-20s. Well, I don't know where it's going to be by the time we get to the draft. Draft's still a month away. There's still a lot of time for these things to refine themselves out. I do find it interesting when most of the buzz comes around like all those fringe, whatever kind of players. And if that ends up swaying you away from some guys, maybe like a Derek Queen, that's basically lived in the 8 to 12 range the entire process, are we just overlooking him because there hasn't been, this dramatic movement for him? Or are we finding some players that really are more deserving and you can structure your team better through the draft?
Yeah, fascinating stuff, man. All right. Good Locked On Nets announcement coming next week also, yes. We think. So that will be that's exciting news. So we'll keep everyone up to date going into next week on what that is, which is going to be our final week on the show, but a feed that will definitely live on. And I think we have a good announcement about that going forward. So we'll do that, and we'll get into more draft stuff also. Make sure you subscribe, and like, we're going to hit 8,000 subscribers here.
Just the right time.
Perfect. Let's get that right before the draft. Let's get that right before the draft.
We actually didn't tell anybody behind the scenes. We said we would have stayed on for another 6 years if we had hit 8,000 subscribers. But
yeah, thanks for nothing.
In a lot of ways, you guys let us down.
Yeah. All right, so that's the number one way to help the show.
Truth is stranger than fiction, but it is because fiction is obliged to stick to possibilities. Truth is not. That is one, quite frankly, confusing Mark Twain.
So overrated. All right.
Overrated. You think about award? They give out his head as a statue as an award now?
Nah,
I mean, come on.
He's great. All right. One of the all-time great poets. We're back again next week talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.
Basketball.